you do it? Oh.
Welcome to the pre-council meeting of the Joliet City Council for September 16th, 2019. Honorable Mayor Robert Odekirk presiding.
We'll begin with roll call. Mayor Odekirk.
Here.
Councilman Dickinson.
Here.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Here.
Councilman Hug.
Here.
Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Mudrin. Absent. Councilwoman Quillman.
Here.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Here.
Councilman Turk.
Here.
We have two presentations this evening. The first presentation is Amita Health Community Visioning Program.
Good evening. I'm just going to do a quick introduction here. I'd like to introduce Shannon Jermel from Amita Health. She's going to be doing a quick presentation on our medical center here in Joliet, just kind of a rundown of some of the changes that are going inside of the medical center, as well as share some of the results from our community visioning program that occurred about 4 months ago. I know some of the council members were part of that. So as you know, we created a TIF in 2017 around the medical campus. To date, we haven't done any development agreements in that area. So about 8 months ago, we reached out to Amita Health saying, hey, how do we have a better relationship with Amita Health in order to kind of get some development around the medical center. So what came from that was this community visioning program, and I think it's worked out really well so far, so we'd like to share those results with you. So, Shannon?
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me. So as Derek said, we were focused on the TIF district, which, as you know, surrounds the medical center campus. Part of the visioning process is asking questions about the campus around the hospital, but we also dug deeper into things about the hospital programs and services and whatnot. As we did this visioning process, which is something we've done several times throughout our health system, we also had Catalyst with us. They're a partner that do space planning and capital planning, so they were in the process of doing that for all of Amita Health. So we had them with us that week as we did the visioning to kind of have another ear in what they were hearing and looking for cross-cutting themes. So throughout the week, we had about 200 different stakeholders that came and took place in the various visioning sessions. They were done in different capacities. Some were with mapping and sticky dots and notes, and others were more of in a focus group type setting. So these were the various stakeholder groups that we engaged, and many of you participated, so we do thank you for taking time to come out and share your opinions. And these, again, were just some visuals of the things that we did throughout the week. Again, looking at the hospital itself, the hospital campus, as well as what is in the TIF district, and really asking people, what do they like, what services do they use, what don't they like, and just kind of talking through all of that and collecting all that information. One of the exercises we did in all the facilitated sessions was asking for them to use a word to describe the medical center. So as you can see, there's a lot of words up there. But as you can see as well, that the largest one is anchor, meaning we heard that one a lot. So we were very proud to hear that, knowing we are an anchor institution for Joliet, as well as, of course, the west side of the city. But there's some very nice words up there, but as we see as well, there's some not so nice words. So we took it all in, the constructive criticism as an opportunity to move forward. So these were the themes from the visioning overall that we heard. So telling our story, improving our patient and associate experience, and then creating a sense of place. So I'll just kind of go through each of these briefly. So for telling our story, we know St. Joe's has gone through several transitions, and so there's been sort of a lag in information coming out from the hospital. So this is just a quick snapshot of some of our recent and fresh accolades, including the top one being a Leapfrog Grade A hospital. That was a major improvement over the last few years. We also are a magnet center for nursing, which I don't think we talk about enough because it is quite an accomplishment to be ranked as one of the highest hospitals with the best nursing care. And then just a few other accolades that we have. One of the things we heard throughout the week was information regarding our emergency department, whether it was stories people were telling us from decades ago or things more recent. But we have been actually in some a period where we've been making some ongoing improvements. So you can see on this slide, it started in January of 18, and so this is the last year and a half in terms of improvements. So The bar that you might want to look at most closely is the the orange, and that is our door to provider time. So prior to starting an improvement process, it was about 60 minutes average to see a provider. We've gotten that down, as you can see, over the last year and a half to within the 20-minute period of time. And again, it's an average, so it's not exactly to say that every single person is going to have that 25 minutes door to provider, but it's definitely something to note that the numbers have gone down while our volumes, which is the blue bar for emergency room care, have gone up. The other one is I guess it looks more yellowish now. Up here, it's the door to discharge. So those patients that we see that can be discharged to go home, the goal is to get people in and out in an hour and a half. And so again, we got a little work to do on that, but again, that line continues to trend down. So again, a story we need to continue to tell the community, as well as our commitment to the community in terms of our community benefits. We see a high population of Medicaid patients at the medical center, so we have a large portion of unreimbursed care that we are taking on, as well as financial assistance. So writing off charges to patients or discounting patients' care when they're not able to afford the care that they receive, and then just other things that we do in the community to help. In terms of the theme of improving patient and associate experience, these were some questions that we heard over and over again throughout the week. So what is the front entrance to the hospital? What does it mean to enter the space? How do I navigate the campus? And that was both an internal and external question for navigation. And then what medical programs are we building upon? What do we stand for? So we are embarking, and it's actually kicking off in the next week or so, a renovation of the front entrance. As we opened the new wing is already a decade old. We have a beautiful lobby, but we're not using it to full capacity. So plans are underway to kind of flip the lobby and really draw the traffic to the Springfield side of the hospital instead of the traditional Madison side. We heard a lot about enhancing our green space. You know, we've built a lot of parking lots as we needed them over the years for construction and things like that. So there's a lot of interest from especially our associates and people that live in the community of really trying to take back any green space possibly that we can. Also being connected, we do have the Joliet Junction Trail nearby. There was talks about making it more accessible so people could ride their bikes over to the hospital. So this was just a suggested path for that was brought up during the week. Wayfinding, so again, inside and outside the hospital, doing a better job once people get inside, but again, having a dedicated entrance will help with that wayfinding issue. But then outside, you know, throughout the week, the name St. Joseph Square became sort of the reference that we started calling the area instead of Medical Center TIF or TIF District. So if we're going to call it St. Joseph Square, really kind of claiming that, making some signage to kind of showcase that and make it a true neighborhood inside of Joliet. And then in terms of our clinical services, so as we've come together with AMITA, St. Joe's is actually one of the 3 hub hospitals within the 19 hospital network for AMITA Health. So St. Joe's is just going to be continuing to grow, capital be infused in St. Joseph, as well as programs being expanded, and one of them would be our cardiac services. We do plan to continue our open heart program that we've always had, or we've had since the early 90s, but also building a new hybrid cath lab and essentially putting a heart hospital within the hospital is where we're going with heart care. And in terms of creating a sense of place, so this is, again, just an example of what was put together by our Catalyst partners that were with us that week. Again, by no means is this the exact plan of what we would possibly see in the future, but obviously a big part of the campus continuing to be a medical component. We're really along the Springfield side and Republic side seeing a lot of different development coming in. We heard a lot about needing more options for food and drink for the families that are coming into the hospital, our physicians, the staff, again, connecting to the Republic the bike path through Republic. We heard a lot about the need for housing, the upscale millennial housing, or just housing for seniors, 1-bedroom apartment complex, things like that. You know, adding more of a wellness component as well to the neighborhood. So these are just kind of, again, what's possible that we, again, heard and generated. So definitely a hotel was something by and part we heard over and over and over again throughout the week. Again, by, you know, our associates, our doctors, community members, just something that's within walking distance to the hospital that makes it really accessible for families or, again, visiting physicians or staff that we have. The use of mixed-use development, so again, more of a neighborhood-like feel where we'd have some first floor retail with, again, housing or a hotel above it. Again, all within a healthcare hub, close to the hospital, other services related to healthcare in the neighborhood. And again, these were just some ideas that were pulled from other health systems throughout the country in terms of other places where this has been done. Making it a very walkable, safe community. We heard that a lot. People want to walk and get to things that way instead of getting into their car. And this was, one of the examples was in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where they developed this medical mile. So essentially around the hospital, they redeveloped the area based on knowing that the hospital was something that was attracting people to the area. And so next steps, so again, internally, opening that front entrance, we anticipate that will be done by early 2020. Continuing our emergency department improvements and sharing that story as well as other stories and accomplishments. The Heart Hospital development, which is ongoing. And then since then, we were asked to form a community visioning committee. So we polled people both internally as well as business owners within the TIF district and a few other people from the community to really kind of dive deeper into the visioning findings to talk about like what really should we do first. And so they talked a lot about signage. They would love to see that St. Joseph Square, a cohesive signage project, specifically down Springfield to really kind of, set off that this is a TIF, this is a neighborhood we want to redevelop, and this is the name. As well as community art around the medical center. I believe we're getting a statue, which we're excited to have, a City of Joliet nursing statue, I believe.
Yes.
So that will be one of the first pieces of art. But the area around the hospital is about a mile, and so a lot of people walk around that block around the hospital, more so than we thought. Even people from the neighborhood utilize that mile. So the thought was kind of dotting our campus with various pieces of art to kind of make it a little bit more interesting as people are walking around. And again, creating that sense of place. It's not just, I'm going here to the hospital, but I'm using this for another reason. And then externally, continuing to work with the city to kind of bring some of these ideas to life if possible. So again, hotel, restaurants, other services, potentially housing, always trying to look for ways to increase the green space and the pedestrian amenities, and then again, coordinated streetscape and signage. So again, this is kind of what we landed on. I don't know if I'm supposed to take any questions. If not, thank you.
Like to comment, before your president just left, I had an appointment to set up with him to talk about that nurse's statue.
Sure.
And I was wondering if before all this takes place, since it's just there by itself now and some of these statues being out in the weather, if you could possibly get it now and put it
Sure.
in your lobby, because that's where it was until it found its present home. And then when
The
she,
lobby of St. Joe's?
yes,
Oh, okay.
yes, because it's a nursing statue with an x-ray and everything.
Okay.
And so we had our friends at Community Public Art that did it many, many years ago.
Okay.
And we had talked about that.
Yeah, we can
So,
look into that. Yes.
Yeah, and since that hospital left, it's only right that you guys should have it since
Sure,
you're here.
yes, and our nurses will love that, yes. We'll
So
have to do
until
a
it finds a
photo.
permanent home, if you could put it in the lobby, so people could see it.
Yeah,
Nice.
or someplace outside, maybe right in the front as well, too, yeah.
Anybody biting for the new job?
Actually, the regional operating officer that Bob was reporting to, Herb Buchanan, he's recently been named as the new president. So he
Oh.
will be getting started, or he's already been starting the last few weeks.
We need to get that in the community so we can.
Yes, I know, there needs to.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Next is a presentation on professional consulting services for preparation of a citywide comprehensive plan.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to introduce Leslie Roth. She is with Ratio, and that is our preferred consultant for the completion of the new citywide comprehensive plan. This is a process that we started back in October of 2018. It was a two-step process, request for qualifications, and then we went to a request for proposals. The RFQ brought us 8 firms, and we narrowed that down to 4 through the RFP process. And Ratio scored the highest. We were very pleased with their experience, the number of comprehensive plans that they have completed in the past, and the makeup of their sub-consultants, each of which we have worked with here in the city in the past. So we feel that they are qualified. We feel that they will bring a great deal to this planning process. Their commitment in terms of their staff resources and the time that they're going to put in to this plan, I think will let us have a successful process. So without further delay, Leslie Roth.
Thank you, Kendall. Mayor, Council, thank you so much for having me today. My name is Leslie Roth. I'm an associate principal with Ratio and the director of urban planning for our firm. I'm going to take you through a quick presentation today about the comprehensive plan and our approach. We're really excited that you've decided to embark on this ambitious effort after over 50 years of not having a modern, relevant, comprehensive plan. So this is a really very exciting time in the history of Joliet, and we're excited to be a part of it. 2 seconds on Ratio. We're a multidisciplinary architecture and planning firm. We have over 6 disciplines in-house, which means you're going to be getting a comprehensive suite of services from Ratio. We're joined by 4 other consultant firms that offer civil engineering, economic development, Ginkgo Planning and Design, who you're familiar with, who did the Chicago Avenue project to help us out with sub-area planning and corridor planning, and SB Friedman to do economic development. So our focus as a team, and the reason why we selected these intentional partners, is to focus on implementation. The projects that you see here illustrate some of the projects and some of the funding sources that we've used to be able to implement similar projects around the country. Ratio does have 5 offices, including a recent acquisition in Denver, so we're also able to offer Joliet national best practices for how to move your plan from a framework and policy document into implementation. Our project partners also have quite a bit of experience identifying relevant funding sources and working with you to bring this plan to fruition. 2 projects that I wanted to give you quick examples of how to convert a comprehensive plan into an implementable solution. This is about the scale of project. A comprehensive plan, as you know, is a citywide plan. This is a very ambitious effort, and it doesn't come to every project that we identify and every policy that will be uncovered and adopted in the comprehensive plan does not come to fruition immediately. You're probably very familiar with the time it takes to move big projects forward. But we did want to give you 2 examples of projects that did come to fruition as a result of our efforts. The first one is Highland Park. It's on the North Shore of Chicago. We did a downtown plan for Highland Park, and it resulted in a 3-phase project. The first one is signage and wayfinding and electric kiosks and digital kiosks in the downtown of Highland Park. The second project we recently completed was a streetscape project resulting in a lighting plan and installation funded by their TIF district, and now we're embarking on the 3rd phase of that project, which is lighting on the way to the Ravinia Festival. The second project is also a result of our downtown planning efforts in the city of Branson, Missouri. Very popular national tourist destination. What you see in these photos is actually the final construction. Downtown Branson has a lot of tourists every year, tens of thousands, and they really wanted their downtown to reflect the investment that they're putting into infrastructure and to have a more welcoming environment. And so what we did here with our downtown plan and streetscape design was really look at the history of the community and created a downtown and streetscape design that reflected their cultural legacy. What is a comprehensive plan and why is it important to Joliet today? A comprehensive plan actually empowers you, the council, the commission, elected and appointed officials to actually create a plan that is then adopted. This is not a zoning ordinance. These are policy recommendations that guide decision-making for the next 20 years. The really important thing to understand about that is that this will set you up to be able to have conversations with stakeholders. We engage residents throughout this process, have conversations among yourselves to actually make the best decisions for the community. Looking forward, because Joliet has not had a comprehensive plan in a number of years, we want to give you the best tools, and resources that you can possibly have to bring Joliet into the future. Again, this is a policy document. This guides decision-making and should be a framework for all projects that actually come in front of the city. So what differentiates our plans from other comprehensive plans? The first thing is that you won't fall asleep reading it. This is a highly graphic educational document. It's really important. This is probably one of the most important documents that you'll have in guiding policy and decision-making in the city. And so we want to make sure that we're all speaking the same language as we go through this process. It's a relatively long process. Our schedule is 12 to 18 months, but this is to make sure that while we're creating a shared language together, we're also creating that shared language with residents and stakeholders in the community. So everyone has the same understanding of what we're trying to accomplish through this plan. While this plan will be specifically tailored and geared towards Joliet, Joliet does not exist in isolation. It's a leader in regional planning, and so we want to make sure and celebrate the successes of the past. We know that you've done a lot of planning in recent years, and we don't want you to have to repeat yourself. So the comprehensive plan is also able to take all these plans and reflect them in one cohesive document. So what are those planning trends? This is actually a short list, and these are conversations that we'll have together as we go through this process. We want to make sure that when we leave you with this plan at the end of that 12 to 18 months, that it is fiscally responsible, that it is grounded in a relevant market, and that you do have the tools to be able to catalyze implementation. The plans that we create are focused on implementation. We look at short, medium, and long-term goals for implementation, and we coordinate that with your capital improvement budget. We also recommend strongly that you coordinate the policies that you've identified in the short term with your budget on an annual basis. We'll also look at revitalizing key sub-areas. We know that you have done some planning in key areas within the city. With you, we want to identify if there's other key sub-areas or corridors that you'd like to be the focus of the study. And most of all, this would be a colossal waste of everyone's time if it did not enhance the quality of life of residents. So what is a comprehensive plan? We always start with this question and definition of what a vision is. It's really important while, we go to work every day, we greet our neighbors, we drive to work, we go to our kids' baseball game. One thing that a comprehensive plan does is that it really makes you think like a visionary. You're a futurist now. You're 30,000 feet up, and you're creating something that's going to guide the future of Joliet for the next 20 or 30 years. So we always ask the first question of every comprehensive plan, what do you love about this city? Because we want to make sure that the things that you hold as valuable, the legacy of the community, and the identity that you want to maintain is kept throughout this process. And it's a question that we continue to ask ourselves throughout the whole entire process to make sure that the vision is consistent and that the document that we're creating is one that you're going to be proud of. So when we get to implementation, this is something that we start talking about from day one. We want to make sure that you not only have the tools and can identify the resources for those projects, but that it is realistic. We know that every single policy in this comprehensive plan cannot happen tomorrow, but we want to be able to manage those expectations. We want to hold people accountable. We want to make sure that everyone understands their responsibility, including residents and stakeholders, for the implementation of this plan. It's very, very important that there is an annual evaluation so we can say, great job and pat ourselves on the back. And we can also say, hey, maybe we could have done something better. It's a time for introspection and reevaluation of those priorities. This plan doesn't happen because I say it does. This is going to take the whole village, the whole city to actually put this together. And it'll be guided by an advisory committee. This was identified in the RFP. These are the folks that know the community best, in addition to yourselves and our audience members here, to make sure that we're getting it right. We're the technical experts. We're putting this together. We're facilitating this process, but you are the community experts. This is going to be your plan. So when our team leaves, you have something that you can be proud of, that's implementable, that reflects the vision of the community, and will guide you to into the future. So the advisory committee is really going to help us with that. They're attending public workshops. They're going to be the eyes and the ears on the ground. They're going to be the leaders and champions of this plan. And most of all, they're going to be ambassadors for the community. So this is the part that I get really excited about. It's public engagement. Because building those connections and common ground is absolutely critical to the success of this plan. As a part of our process and as a response to the RFP, we have over 40 meetings as a part of this year to 18-month planning process. This includes presentations to you, it includes meeting in neighborhoods, it includes coffee with residents, it includes pop-up workshops at a farmer's market, any way that we can possibly engage to make sure that the plan reflects the community, what it looks like, what its values are, and most of all, how to get people really engaged and excited about changing, being a part of the future of Joliet and creating change. So we do that by designing learning experiences. You know, as I mentioned to you, defining what a comprehensive plan is, why it's important, why it's necessary for you to get engaged. And this is not only for people, over the legal voting age. This is for youth, this is for children, this is for seniors. This is for people who are non-native English speakers. These are for people to get involved who work the third shift. So this process and the programs and the projects and initiatives that we want to come out of this plan are really for everyone in the city of Joliet. We do that by creating a number of different tools. It's not always necessary for you to show up at Tuesday at 6 o'clock, even though, it's fine at 5:30 on a Monday. For everyone, we know that this is not accessible. So are weekends better? Is a coffee shop on a Sunday? Is a church social the best way to reach out? We want to design those tools for you that are actually going to meet people where they are and make it easy and convenient for them to engage in this process. This comprehensive planning process is really very, very exciting, and I hope that my passion for this project has been conveyed to you today. It's not only about creating a book that sits on a shelf. This is again, waste of everyone's time. This is actionable. The programs, the initiatives, and the implementation focus of this plan is really something that you should be using every single day to guide decision making. It's not only a policy document, this is about quality of life. This is increasing all of the wonderful things, characteristics that Joliet has to offer. So it has to do that from a futuristic point of view. It has to be flexible. It has to be adaptive. And that's what this document does, is that it gives you the tools to move forward with success. This is super tiny, but I put the project schedule in this presentation just to give you a sense of all the different activities that are happening throughout this 12 to 18-month process. Every phase of each one of the 5 phases is punctuated by not only the advisory committee meeting and presentations, but with public engagement, not only in person, but also virtual in the form of a website. So that's all I have for you today. You're welcome to ask questions if you have any.
Thank you. I'll start. One of the concerns that I heard about your group, it wasn't a criticism, but that was that you guys tend to have a bias or an emphasis on downtown or downtown areas. And I saw that you said you had done 97 downtown plans, 72 comprehensive plans. So how do we answer that going forward, that you're not just going to focus on downtown, that it will be a full citywide plan?
By its definition, is the first way to do it. A comprehensive plan is a citywide plan. We did have in our proposal that we would look at sub-areas, so if there are specific areas of the city that you'd like us to focus on, we're happy to do that. But our goal as a team is to focus on taking that larger vision, is understanding Joliet as a city holistically. That's neighborhoods, that's housing, that's natural resources, that's parks and open space, that's all the different land uses that you have, it's transportation systems, it's trails, it's ped, it's bike. The way that a comprehensive plan, the way that we approach a comprehensive plan is by looking at a city holistically. So it can't serve you the way that it needs to if it were just for downtown. A downtown plan is a sub-area plan. It can be taken alone, or we can provide specific recommendations, but a comprehensive plan by definition is for the whole city.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Questions?
That's a good question.
I'm good, thank you.
We're good. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you so much.
So citizens to be heard on agenda items. Is there anyone present that would like to speak on the agenda item this evening? Seeing none, we'll pass it over to Steve Jones to discuss tomorrow night's items.
Thank you. Good evening. Our first big item for tomorrow's meeting will be a presentation that occurs every year from our Will County Center for Economic Development. So Mr. Bruning will be here to talk about things happening not only in Joliet, but in the county overall. Under Mayor's report, we'll have proclamation honoring Constitution Week. And Mayor, I'm not sure if you have appointments, but it's certainly on the agenda. Under council committee reports, it's a full gamut of committees. We will have reports from our economic development, our finance, land use and legislative, prison, public service, and stadium committees. Under consent agenda, obviously minutes, as we always have. The first substantive item under consent will be our position vacancies. And all of these positions are due to retirement. We'll be having a request for 2 maintenance foremen, 1 fleet technician, a fire captain, and a senior fire equipment mechanic, advertised and filled. Next item is Council Memo 488-19. And you recall at the last meeting, we had a little bit of discussion with regard to the security contract for Riverwalk Homes. And the question came up as to whether the city should approve the agreement. And there were some questions about liability and LLC. I'm happy to report that our Corporation Counsel and Finance came up with a method which we're calling concurrence. So in effect, as some of these big ticket items would come forward, we would concur. I could certainly have Marty answer any questions as to how this lessens the liability, but we feel that within the realm of the existing agreement with Holston, with the LLC, that this basically decreases some of that liability that would occur if we were to approve these contracts. So are there any questions about that?
Mayor?
Yes.
Steve, you carefully chose your words to say decrease, so it won't eliminate it? Is that the legal opinion from the legal staff?
It won't eliminate it.
Okay. Thank you.
There's the old adage, whenever people get sued, the courts figure it out and decide. So, I mean, whether there's liability or not, typically municipalities get caught in the lawsuits. We will have payroll for 4 separate pay periods. Under public hearings, we have several things happening. First and foremost, we have the statutory public hearing that's required as part of a TIF amendment process. Council's well aware of the fact that we're proposing to extend the life of the downtown city center TIF, which expires in 2023. We're looking to extend that to 2035. There will be a presentation by SB Friedman who will go through the report and the process. Second public hearing is the Memo 495-19. This is associated with a 1-acre parcel located on Vetter Road. This is an annexation and an industrial rezoning on that property. This is a parcel that currently is residential. There's a home on the property. It was recently acquired by Centerpoint, and it's proposed to be vacated and turned into industrial use sometime in 2020, and the vacation of the property will occur by the end of 2019. This matter was recommended for approval by our Plan Commission by a 9-0 vote. Next public hearing is Council Memo 496-19, and this is the matter that has been tabled. I think we broke a record in the most number of consecutive tablings, but everyone was trying to get the language correct. This is the Cobalt matter. It is going to involve an annexation agreement, annexation, rezoning to B3, and preliminary plat approval. This was recommended for approval by our Plan Commission by a 7-0 vote, and everyone will recall that the CarMax dealership came forward a number of months ago. That is proposed for Lot 4 of this subdivision. Lot 3 has a potential new car dealership. We have no plans in front of us, but we're optimistic that that will occur. Lots 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are earmarked for future commercial uses, retail, office, et cetera. And then Lot 9 is proposed for senior housing. So this is a big deal. This is a parcel of property that we've had marketed by the city for a number of years. We're just really pleased that the ownership and potential developers came forward. So this will be a nice addition to our community. There are representatives here tonight if anyone has any questions. Okay, under ordinances and resolutions, our first ordinance is under Council Memo 498-19, and these are ordinances associated with the Timber Point subdivision. You'll recall this is a 120-unit rental townhome development, and it's located at McDonough and Frontage Road. This item had been previously tabled to tonight. Within this matter, there's an ordinance approving the preliminary and final PUD. I'd point out that there have been numerous meetings that have been conducted with the surrounding neighborhood, and our Plan Commission has recommended approval by a 7-0 vote. The last concern that was expressed by council has been addressed through some language that was added, and it really referenced the PUD as to the nature of the development as well as internal maintenance. And there are representatives here tonight if there are any questions.
Mayor,
Yes,
I'm just going to point out a couple of things here. We did meet with the neighbors on Thursday, and most of the neighbors that used to live there in the condos have all sold and left because of this development. But again, there was question about the 3.5 acres being a dog park. And I discussed that with, and I brought it up at the meeting with Sue Goulis, who's the president of the Park District, and she said that the Park District never approved a dog park. And there is a letter in there from the Park District, but it was from the finance director saying that they would be mentioning it to the board. The board was aware of it in June, and Mr. Maddox did not show up for that board meeting. But the neighbors are okay if there's no dog park or if they sell it back to the Park District for money. So that's still up in the air. But I just wanted to point that out, but the neighbors were fine with that. And the other thing, and I was looking in the memo on page 19, and I was looking that up when we were talking, at page 19 of the memo. Now, it says there's going to be a clubhouse of 25 square feet with men and women's showers and locker rooms. And this didn't come up the other night, and I'll tell you why. And it says there's also going to be exercise equipment. But at the meeting, and as Mr. Maddox has said before, there is no clubhouse. The clubhouse is only going to be for his office. So should that not be removed from that council memo?
Mr. Maddox?
Hello, my name is Ed Maddox from Kipling Group. In regard to the clubhouse, there's a clubhouse in the drawings. It's about 2,500 square feet. It does have bathrooms and it's 2 offices. It has an area set aside for some fitness equipment if we so choose to, to have that amenity in the community. So.
Right, but you told the neighbors the other day that there was no clubhouse available for them. It was only for you, for your offices. And that's why I'm confused, because when I was reading this, I mean, we were all good at the meeting on Thursday, but then as I'm reading this memo, I see that put in here. So is it a clubhouse for you, or is it a clubhouse for the people that are going to live there?
Well, the answer to that is the purpose of this building is for Timber Point development for the 120 units that this sits within. The meeting that we had was the neighbors next door, Timber Oaks.
Right.
And this is not of use for that other community, for the neighbor. It's only for the neighbor that it's in.
But someone asked if there was going to be a clubhouse for this one, and you said no. It was only going to be for your use.
Well, that's,
You're telling me no? I was there.
yep, so is I, Councilwoman.
Yeah, I know you were there.
And there is a, so let's just be clear, there is a clubhouse, it's 2,500 square feet. It will have office space, it will have community meeting rooms.
And it will be for these neighbors.
It is for the Timber Point development.
Right, right. But, I hear what you're saying, but you also told me that the Park District Board approved your dog park, and that did not happen. But that's what you told everybody. I asked you the question twice on Thursday, and that never happened.
I've had conversation and meetings about 4 different times with the Joliet Park District.
Not according to the board, you didn't.
Not with the board, with the
Well,
staff.
they're the ones that make the final decision, just like the council makes the
Well,
final decision.
don't dump it.
But anyway, regardless,
They'll still make the
it's
final
not going to
decision.
happen, but I'm just saying, I wanted to make this very clear because I'm not always getting the correct answer from you. I get a different answer all the time.
I'd be glad to clarify anything.
Well, I clarified it with the president of the park board, and that's what she told me.
And as we presented at the neighborhood meeting last week, the park board will get what the park board desires, right? If the ordinance will follow.
Correct, and she
Period.
didn't know at this point, but at that point, she said they did not approve a dog park, which had been presented to the folks a few times. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
And Mayor, if we could just back up for a moment to 496-19.
Sure.
When I was reading those minutes, Steve, I guess one of the plan commissioners asked for a traffic study. Was that ever done?
I'll answer that. Yes, it was done. They gave us a traffic study. We reviewed it, and that's why we made some changes to the preliminary plat the last month, but it's all been incorporated.
Okay, well, I just wondered because there's no
Yes.
mention of that in the memo, and I just wanted to,
Yeah, it has been
Okay.
done, yes.
thank you.
Our next ordinance is associated with Council Memo 499-19. This is relating to a subdivision proposed within Center Point. There are two lots involved. One is a 9.7 acre lot that would accommodate stormwater, and a 14.6 acre lot that would accommodate truck parking that would be accessed through the village of Elwood. Plan Commission did recommend approval of this 9-0. Next matter is Council Memo 500-19, and these are ordinances associated with the Misty Pond subdivision. Ordinance would approve a special use permit and a PUD for condominium project located at the northwest corner of Kellogg and Grape. And you'll recall that this is adjacent to the Millennium Square development. There are 40 owner-occupied condo units proposed, and there would be 5 buildings each, which would have 8 units. This was tabled from our last meeting to address a better understanding of the definition and the nature of the project, particularly as it relates to condos. Our zoning board voted 5-0, and our plan commission voted 7-0, recommending approval. And the language as put together by our corporation council to better define the condo has been added to the PUD itself.
Mayor?
Yes.
Go back to Steve, 499-19. You had mentioned 14 acres for parking. What type of truck parking is that?
I'm sorry?
You had mentioned 14 acres for truck parking.
Yes.
Okay, is that enclosed truck parking? Is
No,
this
it's open truck parking.
And who would be parking there? People?
This truck parking would be for the users within the intermodal. So several trucking companies could park there.
Okay, next item is Council Memo 501-19. And this is an ordinance approving a special use permit to allow continuation of a truck repair facility located at 259 Republic. It's interesting that the same night we had the St. Joseph Medical Center presentation, we also have this on the agenda, which is relevant. The staff discovered that there was a truck repair facility that was operating on the property, which normally wouldn't have been suspicious because the area does have industrial zoning. Someone on staff did figure out that there had never been a special use permit, however. Even though it's industrial, a special use permit was required for truck repairs. So as the TIF process was moving forward, some of the visioning was going on with St. Joe's, we sort of put the brakes on this and said, wait a minute, here we have zoning and we have a use that isn't necessarily in conformance with what that ultimate vision is for the St. Joe's area. So negotiations and discussions occurred with the business owner and property owner. What we've done is come up with a plan that probably balances private property rights along with our general desire to improve this area. What the special use permit would do is it would put a maximum time limit of 10 years on this particular business. If there was an ownership change or property was sold, it would end at that point, but a maximum of 10. But what this special use requires is a lot of landscaping, screening, buffering, operational changes to make that particular property more in conformance with what we look at as being part of the St. Joseph vision. Our zoning board did vote 4-0 to recommend approval. This isn't 100% what we would have wanted, but certainly, as I said, it was a balance. It was trying to help a business owner, property owner, maintain a business that they were physically doing and try to get them over time to conform with more of a vision. Any questions?
So Steve, this is not a logistic operation also?
Is it limited to repair, Kendall, I believe?
It's limited to repair. It's not a logistics trucking company. They do sales and repair.
Okay.
Council Memo 502-19. This relates to a downtown project which we've commonly referred to as the Barber Building. Council recall that we had a conversion of office commercial use into residential a number of years ago, which consisted of 35 units with the intention of doing a few commercial spaces along with some indoor parking. The original plan really, it was more of a vision, and it just didn't work out in terms of feasibility. So the owner, Mr. Petrie, came forward and requested that instead of the indoor parking, perhaps 4 additional residential units could be put into the property. That clearly was in line with what our downtown goals were for additional people living here, and came forward with a plan which was recommended for approval by a vote of 4-0 at our zoning board level. There's a companion item later on in the agenda, which is the actual redevelopment agreement. So there's the zoning part of it and the redevelopment part of it. And this was recommended also by the Economic Development Committee. Any questions? I know Mr. Petrie is in the audience. Okay. Kendall is going to take the next 2 items.
Yes, this next item is an ordinance recommending approval of the variation of use to allow the continuation of 3 residential units on 1 lot, and that would be in a 2-unit house and a single-family house. The property is currently zoned R2 single-family residential. The owner, Mr. Frank Cavazos, is requesting the approval to allow the continuation of the 2 structures on 1 lot with a total of 3 units. The property is located at 523-525 Stryker Avenue. Their requirement is for a total of 5 off-street parking spaces, and that's based on the number of units that are on the lot. And they currently have a total of 9 spaces, and that's off-street parking in a combination of a 2-car garage, a 1-car garage, and a total of 6 surface parking driveways for the property. Any questions? Okay. The next item is an ordinance and resolution repealing a annexation of approximately 101 acres at the southeast corner of Spencer and Cherry Hill Roads. The petitioner in this matter has requested that this item be repealed. They could not effect a purchase of the property in a timely basis, so they are withdrawing their project.
Okay, the next 2 ordinances both relate to Class A liquor licenses. This is Memo 505 and 506. We have a request from the Liquor Commissioner to do 2 things. One is to increase the Class A license fees from its present $1,200 annually to $2,500 annually. And second, to restrict the issuance of new Class A licenses or the transfer of existing licenses. These are the licenses that relate to 3 a.m. retail sales. And the goal here is to eventually phase out these license classes over time. So if someone has a Class A right now, the fee would go into effect. That would be the only way this would affect them. But as that license goes away because they've retired, sold the business or whatever, then that would be converted to a Class B. So we're looking to get rid of 3 a.m. retail sales.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I would agree that we don't need to issue new ones, but I was reading the details, and it was saying that there's 32 of the Class A's currently in Joliet. And in that, also in the details, it was speaking that they initially came out for mom and pop type taverns in neighborhoods. Do you know what number of those 32 is still this mom and pop type tavern?
I don't, Mayor, from the Liquor Commission side?
No, I can look at it, I don't know.
I'm just wondering if we have to put such a high burden on the renewal of these licenses, if they are just still these small taverns, or, you know, if we could do a more gradual increase over time. And as you said, eventually they'll sell it or retire or something like that. I just hate to see them go from 1,200 to 2,500. That's over 100% increase. So that's my thoughts.
Yes.
So Steve, do we have a different license that they can stay open to 3 o'clock, but they need to stop selling packaged goods at
I don't
midnight
have,
or an earlier time?
I don't have the answer to that. We could certainly get that answer tomorrow.
Mayor?
Yes.
Steve, if I understand this correctly, the strategy here is to, moving forward from the Liquor Commission, to not give any more A's out and let these people phase themselves out, right?
Correct.
And so that's the goal. Why are we increasing it? I mean, it's not going to increase their age. They're not going to retire a year sooner. I would tend to agree with the councilwoman that it's like a hefty increase. If the strategy is, look, we'll let these people naturally fizzle out, you know, retire or whatever, and we won't give new ones. Well, we don't have to raise their rate that much to not give new ones. And raising that rate is that, unless it's supposed to be what, onerous, so that they leave earlier? I mean, what's the strategy?
It's an encouragement. I guess, you know, there's the return on investment as to, is it worth it? And, you know, really, 3 o'clock liquor licenses aren't the standard anymore anywhere. I mean, you know, people are looking at the issues of drunk driving and, you know, various activities that result in public safety intervention. I think it's generally something to help discourage the prevalence of these, you know, not only the increases, but also those that exist. So call it encouraging folks to move to a Class B.
You know, I would rather, you know, because we're not going to give new ones, and I'm not saying that I oppose that, but, you know, these people may have been in business 10, 20, 30, 40 years. You know, what is our current ordinance? I know that some of the grocery stores that used to be open 24 hours close at midnight now. They're allowed to sell the liquor at midnight. When do they got to stop selling liquor?
I believe it's a whole different class.
I know, but when do they got to stop?
I don't know.
You know, so if we're worried about drunk driving, then nobody should be selling at 3 in the morning, even the 24-hour grocery stores. I'm not comfortable with trying to strong arm, you know, some 62-year-old husband and wife out of their business. You know, I completely concur with the Liquor Commission of not issuing new ones, because that's not where we're at today. But if I'm hearing it correctly, most, if not all, of these 32, how many total liquor licenses do we have in Joliet? Do you know, Mayor? A couple hundred?
Yeah.
Okay. So these 32 are predominantly in neighborhood.
I'm not sure that's accurate. I'll get
Okay.
you some more information tomorrow. I know that the bar owners I spoke to, it's very lucrative for them, this license, so I'm not, but I'll get you better information tomorrow when I write down.
Okay, next item is Council Memo 50719, which is an ordinance that amends our 2019 budget. And this reflects the expenditure associated with purchase of the Slavic property. Council will recall we entered into a land purchase agreement approximately a month and a half ago for this property. This is the actual purchase amount that has to be reflected in our budget for us to do the purchase itself, which comes a little bit later tonight. 7.3 acres of property. It's west of I-55, just a little bit south of Sile, and this is property that's necessary for the proposed interchange that will occur at I-55 and Route 59. Point out that this is also part of a memorandum of understanding agreement with the Cullinan property project. And if I didn't mention it, it's $635,976. Next item is recommended proposed to be tabled tomorrow. It is the resolution approving the property tax abatement for Harbor Freight. Harbor and Centerpoint are still working out some fine-tuning of the language, so as soon as that is rectified, we will bring that forward. My guess is it'll be 2 weeks out. Council Memo 510-19 is a resolution authorizing a home subrecipient agreement between the city and Will County. This relates to HUD regulations that provide we spend 15% of our annual home funds for community development housing organizations. And this agreement with Will County will allow for them to become lead agency in a $77,000 funding of Cornerstone Services, which would work to rehabilitate rental property for use as group homes. Next item is Memo 512-19, and this is the actual resolution approving the purchase for the Slavic property. Council Memo 513-19 is a resolution approving an amendment to the development agreement with Mid-Central Enterprises. This is the development agreement that's associated with the Barber Building and accommodates the 4 additional units. Under bids and contracts, everything will be discussed in public service. And on that list of 4, the first one does have the contract for the comprehensive plan, which of course you heard the presentation tonight. And I believe that wraps up the agenda.
Mayor, one thing.
Yes.
If we go back to the consent agenda, if no one up here objects, I'd like D to be brought out of consent and stand alone as an item. Is that okay? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Sure.
Next is public comments. Is there anyone that would like to speak on the public comments this evening?
Hi, Mayor and Council, I've spoken before about the Cassidy House. I would like to mention something about 1871 Chicago fire. Destroyed 17,450 buildings, 100,000 people were left homeless. It lasted 2 days. We regionally have a lack of buildings that are as old as the Cassidy House. In the entire city of Chicago, there are only 2 landmarks older than the Cassidy House. So, I don't think it should be destroyed, and I hope it can be moved. In regard to modern hospitality, I would like to read a quote that I ran across the other day. It's by a visionary woman in hospitality. I have an idealistic view of the future of hospitality, which includes food, drink, gas service. We are living in epic times. Relationships, communities are struggling to survive, yet there is hope. If we take all the commodified, materialized inauthenticity out of hospitality, we are left with something real and raw. That is what the Cassidy House is. I'm urging you to save it.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Stephen Wright. I spoke to you a few weeks ago about the Cassidy Mansion as well. I'd like to thank you for holding off on the demolition permit while we explore the options and possibly moving it. I did briefly mention Bluff Street last week, and it was built in 1832 and 33. We had our first frame home there and the first stone buildings, which led to the quarrying of limestone that was sent throughout the Midwest. Those buildings are gone, and they were only 10 years older than the Cassidy Mansion. There's a monument in Bicentennial Park that notes that the National Hotel was built in 1837, and both Presidents Lincoln and Van Buren stayed there. We don't have that anymore. George Cassidy bought a large tract of land that would eventually become the steel mill, which employed so many of my ancestors and many others in the city of Joliet. If it wasn't for his foresight to buy that property, would we have had the steel mill in Joliet, and would we have become the city of steel and stone? Thank you.
Mary Beth Gannon, Western Avenue. I'll keep this brief. I would like to thank the city for holding off for now on demolition. Some of us have been doing research on the Cassidy family, and we've learned that they were here in the 1830s. They did go to Danville, and then they came back. This is one of the oldest families here, and maybe that smaller portion of the house really is the oldest building we have in Joliet. We can't let that go. I hope a peaceful resolution can be reached so that the home is moved, all of it, and hopefully landmarked. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak under public comments?
Quinn Adamowski, 520 Knox Place. I'm standing before you to talk about crime, as it were. About a month ago, we had the forum at the VFW. Thank you, Mayor Odekirk, for putting that on, Chief and Deputy Chiefs. And a lot of the discussion that night revolved around what the police doesn't do, what the police should be doing. And I think that's the wrong conversation that the city needs to have. I greatly appreciate everything the police does. Do we need more police officers? Absolutely. But I don't think that's the only solution to the problem that we have. I think it's a tool. I think the police are the most important tool to fighting crime. I think that Councilwoman Gavin touched on this a couple weeks ago, talking about working with the schools and the churches, talking to neighborhoods, forming groups to talk about these issues. I think that's another avenue that we need to pursue as well. The one thing that we have not talked about, at least I have not seen any discussion about, is if we look at crime as an illness, what are the symptoms? And so when we see dilapidated streets, when we see unkempt properties, whether they're businesses or private owners, when we look at rental properties that sit vacant, become dilapidated, are not taken care of, we're essentially inviting people to act poorly. We don't have appropriate expectations for behavior. I believe that if we focus in on the neighborhoods, if we focus in on problem properties, if we focus in on bad landlords, we can turn that tide. And so I think that's a policy decision. I think that's a budgetary discussion and decision. Most of you at some point, I've had conversations with about the need to do some things on Jefferson Street, or specifically bad landlords, but bad rental properties. And seemingly everyone's on that page. And yet when we look at the community development department in our city, they're grossly understaffed, and they're the front lines for where a lot of these issues can be resolved. So I'm asking, as you guys go through this budgetary process, to take a hard look outside of the comprehensive plan that's pending, take a hard look at potentially adding more people to the community development department, specifically neighborhood services, to start addressing some of these things. So to start talking to property owners about, well, boarded up properties for months, weeds, overgrowth, whatever the case might be. It looks unkempt. It welcomes poor behavior, as I said, and I feel that if we had more staff in those departments to focus in on that, to focus in on those issues, that would actually free up the police to be more proactive. If we have a bad rental property or a bad single family home, and there is multiple calls, we're pulling police off the streets to go deal with that, when they could be out being proactive and preventing some of these other issues. So again, I would just implore you really to look at the budget and try to figure out a way to add more people into neighborhood services to become more proactive in dealing with some of these issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
if I may comment, sometimes some of these properties are in foreclosure and there's not much we can do. And I'm going to ask Kendall to explain that property on Black Road that's been boarded and sold and boarded and sold, and it's because it's all tied up. So could you explain that's another part of the problem, these foreclosures?
Yes, Councilwoman, that is an issue. Once the banks get involved and they foreclose on property, that can add to the cycle of getting these things out of foreclosure, or at least to the point where there could be some more investment. So that particular property, I think, has been an issue for quite a while because of the foreclosure issue. Again, that's something that I think is a little bit outside of the city's purview, but it does impact what we can do in terms of trying to turn the tide in some of these neighborhoods. But yes, foreclosure is a big problem.
And the reason I bring that up is because there are many foreclosures in the neighborhoods lately. And there's nothing being done because the bank has them, and then people are allowed to live there even though they are in foreclosure, but the properties are run down and sometimes the people don't live there anymore. And it's been happening more and more in the neighborhoods. And so I don't know, there's probably nothing we can do about it, but that's a big part of the problem as well.
Yes, it is.
Just one point, besides the rentals.
Kathy Spieler, Joliet. I also came to speak about our neighborhoods, and I'm going to echo a little bit about what Quinn spoke of. I brought up at one of our neighborhood meetings when Jeff Sturr was there, who, by the way, does a wonderful job. Anytime I call, they come right out. But I asked about the single-family rental homes being inspected. And I know that due to budgetary, they said that it would not be able to done. But I really feel like that's something we should look at again. I mean, I have one across the street from me. It's a 4-bedroom rental. And 6 parking spots, a 2-car garage, yet they park on the grass. The grass isn't cut. They're always overcrowded. And that's just one. I've got one right next door to me, too. And it's a 2-bedroom, and there's about 9 people living there. So I feel like if we could get those homes inspected, too, it would help with the crime and everything in our neighborhoods. So if you would consider that, I would appreciate it. The other thing is, I'm back about our NOPT officer in Reedwood. Last time when I spoke, Chief Al assured me after the meeting that, you know, something would be done to help our neighborhood. And I know that Deputy Commander Reed has kept in touch with me. He's absolutely wonderful. But there's extra patrols and things, still no NOPT officer. And I looked up from the Herald News, the shooting, shot fired, aggravated discharge and everything, and I counted 14 dots in our neighborhood. And this was prior to 2 weeks ago when we had 3 more shootings, 2 on Friday night, 1 by Wheeler, 1 by Jefferson, and then another one I was told from other neighbors on Saturday by our schools. And I don't know if it was Dirksen or the disability school. But either way, I keep getting told that there's requirements. So what I would like is, and maybe you guys can help me, I would like a piece of paper saying these are the requirements, and then a piece of paper saying this is what Reedwood area has. Because I feel like it's just not being addressed, and I don't know why. I mean, we really could use the help. These are all the shots fired I wrote down, and aggravated shootings and stuff in our nice, quiet little neighborhood up till 10 months ago. So, you know, I could use your help. So, thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Mayor,
Yes.
if there's no one else, can I speak?
Yeah.
First of all, I'm in agreement. We certainly got to make sure we take care, you know, we monitor vacant homes, vacant buildings. that's an issue. And the issue of crime, but when people bring crime into these situations, I attended the public forum that you held, Mayor, and it was a good forum, as they had pointed out. You should do it again. Maybe next time we won't have anybody hijack it, right?
Is there an election coming up?
Yeah. Always an election coming up.
4-minute rule there.
Look, government's not the answer to everything. We have a pretty darn good police department. Chief, we have 27,000 roughly intersections in Joliet. Could you please provide one officer for each intersection, 24 hours a day? No? Unless we provide you with the officers, right? Right. Bottom line, it comes from home. I got a 20-year-old son and a 19-year-old daughter, okay? If they decide to break the law, I'm not going to turn to Jan Quillman or Bob Oderkirk or anybody in this audience. I'm going to turn to my wife and say, what did we do wrong? Not what did society do wrong. And the police do a really good job. I got some shocking news for some people. 99.999% of the time, the police come after the crime is committed. That's why we spend millions and millions of dollars on a system called 911. Because we don't have a police officer at every intersection, and we couldn't. We can't even have one, 24 hours a day in a one-block area. They work hard, they ride hard, they run hard, and when they are notified, they respond hard. This is not a Joliet problem. This is not even a Chicago problem. This is a nationwide deterioration in family. We've got to have parents who are not in denial when they have kids that are involved in gangs or crimes. We have to have parents who step in like my parents did. Now, I won't give you my position on corporal punishment for kids, whether I favor it or not, but I'll tell you my dad did. And my grandfather did.
You still got the bruises.
Yes, indeed. I still have the bruises. You're absolutely right. I got the scars.
I got some too.
The answer is not going to be here in this chambers. The answer is not going to be in Chief Rochener's office. That's going to be a small impact, a small part of it. The answer is in our homes, folks. It is in our homes. And that's the 800-pound gorilla that people ignore when they talk about crime. I guess being politically correct means you can't tell somebody, take care of your children. I guess that's wrong now. You're being too mean. It's about family. So some of the suggestions made tonight, I respect the suggestion, folks. Mr. Adamowski, I respect your, it'll be a chip. Until we solve as a society, not as a government, the problem with the deteriorating family structure, whatever's happening. And it's not a single family versus non-single family. I know some single moms and single dads that do a tremendous job raising their kids. I know families with moms and dads that are in gangs. But it's about the home, folks. It really is. And with that, I'm done preaching.
Thank you.
Amen. Councilman, I think.
I did receive a request for closed session. So is there a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel, collective bargaining, land acquisition or conveyance, pending or threat litigation, and discussion of minutes of closed session meetings, after which the meeting will be adjourned?
I guess so moved.
Second. Motion seconded. Councilman Dickinson. Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Hogg. Councilman Hogg.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Yes, aye.
Councilwoman Reardon. Aye. Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Well, damn it.